From the Hill Country in Texas, broadcasting worldwide, this is OneRadioNetwork.com.
Good morning. This is OneRadioNetwork.com. The telephone number is 888-663-6386. Email patrick@OneRadioNetwork.com. Here's your host, Patrick Timpone.
Well, a very pleasant good morning to you. Thank you, Shirley. It is October 31st, last day of the month. I guess around the world they do this Halloween thing where kids dress up and go around and get candy. We used to do that. So that's happening around the world. Is it around the world thing or is it just a United States thing? I don't know. Brad Johnson, good morning.
Good morning, Patrick. Thanks for having me on.
Well, yeah. How are you doing?
I'm doing great.
Yeah. Tell folks about the idea of being a conduit to channel other entities. I told you before I went on the air that when I first heard the first channel person, I think the name was Ramtha, way back, 20, 30 years ago. And I always thought, well, this is cool. It's great information. But I think these people are they're just saying what they know as soul, because as soul we know everything. And maybe but then I asked you before the show, and I'm going to ask you now, that may be true to an extent where you're giving some of your insights as soul because you travel around. But there is a separate entity named Adronis that exists.
Yeah, I mean, you have to really look at yourself that you are a nexus to everything relating to your reality. And so being like Adronis would be an extension to the nexus of myself. So it really is another being that's existing in another reality, living their own life in that particular way. He lives a life very, very different from what we can understand. He's basically not existing within space and time. He is truly beyond that. He is basically what's known as a sixth density entity, and he is existing with kind of a non-physicalized version of lifetime. And so basically what we've done is we've created a contract together for his energy and my energy to meld and to fuse and to bond. And so basically being a conduit for an energy is just being able to work with your own energies while also being able to add to the mix the energies of this particular being as well, so that you're coagulating and being able to create a third reality. So it's kind of like you have your bridge, they have their bridge, they're building it together, they meet, and then you have this mixture of energy. That's basically how I channel. There's some other ones that also go into trance channeling as well, too.
Differently.
I wonder,
well, I'll ask Adronis, but I wonder, so how did it even happen for you? I mean, did you start hearing some voices or?
No, it's not even close to how I channel, actually.
Not even close.
Basically how it works for me is that I started off just writing a novel. I wanted to create a science fiction novel about the extraterrestrial presence. Right. And I just wanted to do some research and find out more about what was really going on about the extraterrestrial presence. And so I started researching a lot of Black Ops community members, psychics, intuitives, and they were all just saying the same thing, that other beings exist, and the best way to communicate with these beings is not about getting on a spaceship and leaving the Earth, but it's actually going into meditation. And the more that you can go into meditation and relax yourself, open yourself up and invite these beings in, then you'll actually have a dialogue going and you can now start to communicate with them. And I thought this was absolutely fascinating. And so looking so much at this research, I just put the novel aside and I wanted to actually dive into this. And that's where I started getting into channeling and just being able to relax your mind and connect and move into those deeper states of awareness, moving into the alpha and theta, delta wave states of frequency through brainwaves. And you're being able to move into that drift. You're actually able to connect with these particular type of beings. And the particular type of channeling that I did at that time was known as automatic writing or inspirational writing. And basically I would just get into a certain state and I would connect with these energies. So I would basically have a point of contact that would represent the star of Sirius. and I would start connecting that. I would imagine what it is to actually be that star.
Yeah.
And as I did that, I would connect with this being. So there was basically a liaison, a mediator, that came in through that star and basically introduced himself as Adronis. And that was not a name I had ever heard before. And it was just something that came in completely spontaneously through perfect flow of the channeling. And he called himself that, and I've been referring to him in that way ever since. And since then, since December of 2008 was when I first made contact with him, and since then it's changed my life dramatically.
I can imagine. So can we liken this? I suspect I would theorize, and what do you think, that almost real creativity is all a little bit like this?
Oh, absolutely.
Do you think?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We never conjure up an original thought. The idea of thought is a
I like that. I like that.
Yeah. It's a matrix that exists within all of creation. It's a field in that way. And so we're all tapping into a thought field, and this basically aligns us vibrationally for us to have an inception, a conception. And being able to make something happen in that way based upon our actions. So the whole idea is that everybody, if we were to look at other planets and different galaxies, you would actually go to these worlds and you would see cars, you would see houses, you would see huts, you would see all of these particular forms of eras, very similar to ourselves. And you're noticing that, wow, if this is true, how does this happen? It's because we're all connected to a unified field. We all connect with this thought field. So if we were to go to other Earth-like planets and we were able to one day say, oh my goodness, yeah, there's a confirmation of life there, we would actually be able to see that, spanning back hundreds of thousands of years in their history, could be very similar to what we were going through as well, too. And that's just all part and parcel of us sharing different thought forms that help us to build a culture. So there's actually a blueprint in regards to how a species like us evolves.
Mm-hmm. Brad Johnson is with us, and he channels Adronis. Tell us a little bit before we talk to what is the process? Because you go in and you can just go in at will and then be connected with with Adronis' soul, his energy, who he is.
Yeah, see, he doesn't exist in space and time, and so it's not like I'm catching him on a coffee break or anything like that. It's more so that he exists beyond space and time, and that space and time work more for him rather than he feels that he's working for it. So basically, the whole idea of connecting to his energy, you're connecting to his essence, a version of himself, because sometimes you can actually shift between years in that way of speaking, between his energy, because you're aligning to different versions of him when he comes through. And basically, as he is this kind of ancient being, he's very ancient, you're able to connect with him quite easily because he just does not exist within a time restraint or a space restraint. Basically, just being able to will him in through the idea of co-creative agreement is actually what allows him to come through.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense to me. All right, it is 13 minutes after the hour. Why don't we do just a couple commercials, Brad, and then we'll talk to Adronis. From Sirius, good morning, Adronis. Are you there?
Well, it's still Brad here, but hey, how's it going?
Oh, okay. Oh, I thought you were just going to bring Adronis in now, but...
oh, I certainly can.
You want to just do that?
Yeah, sure. So basically how it works is it just takes me a moment or two to bring him through. I'm going to be doing a little bit of light chanting in the background.
Okay.
This is just helping me to connect with his energy and bring him through in the center. Once he comes through, then he'll give a brief introduction to himself, and then we'll begin the discussion.
Okay, cool.
Okay, well, here we go.
Okay.
Terra. Soul Star. Sirius. Adronis. Oh. at this time, and we bid you greetings and thank you very much for the opportunity of this interaction today. I am Adronis of Sirius, sending love, appreciation, and gratitude to all who are tuning in to this broadcast being brought forward through your internet collective consciousness. We say hello to the entity known as Patrick. Thank you, and how may we assist you today?
Well, good morning, or whatever it is where you are. Adronis, can you tell us where you live?
Yes, we certainly can. The whole idea in that sense is that we exist as what you would know as a starlight consciousness. We exist within what you could consider to be the nexus of the star that you are familiar with from what you would understand as Sirius A, otherwise known as the dog star, approximately 8 light years away from your own star in that way. In our particular language and term, we refer to the star as Benedex. And basically, we exist, shall we say, through the idea beyond the confines of space and time. Space and time is now more of a variable to us, rather than the idea of feeling that we are moving into some type of parable as it relates to it being a steam train, and us in that sense coming along the ride to rely upon its own state of destination. From where we exist non-linearly, we are now able to access the degree of space and time to move into different realms of consciousness. So being able to look at your day today, firstly, we could go right into the evening, then we could go right into the morning, then we could go right into the afternoon, all based upon the state of intention. So everything from what you would understand as space, time, matter in that form is all just a sphere of a field that contains particular forms of instructions and a program. We simply, from our standpoint and from our vantage point, have access to this degree.
So a planet, a planet would have to be part of matter, energy, space, and time, would it not? I mean, but so I'm kind of confused there.
Well, firstly, understand we exist within the star, the sun itself, not a planet. But the whole idea in that sense is that, yes, a planet itself does exist within the material plane. It can. There are also other different dimensions that exist beyond what you would know as physicalized matter,
sure,
to where there is more light than there is physical matter. Where we exist would be an equivalent of what you would know as those light planes.
I see. When you say we, you and other souls...
We speak on behalf of a collective, yes.
Collective consciousness. So,
yes.
So then do you ever materialize in a body that one could see, that we could see, or you
we could, if we want.
Purely a viewpoint?
Truly. We simply could, in that sense, yes, manifest a body. In fact, we have done this. But the whole idea in that sense is that our particular energy is more, shall we say, in alignment more so with this conduit. So rather than having to manifest a body, we are able to find it much more simple to, shall we say, communicate with a conduit like this and being able to channel in this way, because this is helping you, through your own free will principle, to accept or reject this information, rather than us in that sense having to make a physicalized visit through a materialized body.
Mm-hmm. So that would be your motive for even allowing this with your free will to go on, just to help if you can.
Yes, and again, that's all the reason why we are here. Simply the degree in regards to how we communicate with you is because you are family to us and we are family to you. Uh-huh. Much in regards to our own DNA in ancient times is a part of your own human genome, and so we are related to you genetically.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any information that you can share, insights into the human body on Earth being manipulated with or interacted with other beings in the DNA and the genes, if some people have conjectured?
Yes, well, understand that you are part of what's known as a 22 genetic program experiment. And basically what this represents is that 22 different races have contributed their own genetic stock together with your own genetic stock that has therefore created your own genome. And so basically your universal model of body is the only unique one in all of creation. Human beings themselves would be, shall we say, the highest contrast of beings that exist. Basically what we mean by that is that you are all able to move throughout the contrast as it represents your emotional expression spectrum. There are no other beings in creation that can, in that sense, create as profound as you can, that can instantaneously, as it were, pull energy out of thin air and, in that sense, devise plans, devise scenarios, being able to bounce back and forth, as it were, between emotional states. One moment you can be happy, the next moment you can be sad, the next moment you can be joyful.
Right.
These are, again, all traits that the human genome itself can do. And so basically it is a very, very rare thing. And this is why, again, there has been, shall we say, so much subjectivity of exploration through other beings upon your planet, is because humans are very, shall we say, open source as it relates to their genetics. So basically it is very possible for other beings to, shall we say, bring a human being on board, and in that sense being able to extract much of their genetic stock and easily create a hybrid based upon their genetics, because it is, shall we say, so malleable in that form of genetic manipulation.
So we've been told by some teachers that Earth, they didn't express it like you did, and I appreciate the way you said it, but many of the souls, most of the souls here on Earth are quite evolved, much more so than they even know.
Yes, absolutely. The whole idea is that the soul itself is quite evolved from where you are existing right now in your current era in that form. Now, humans are still attempting to understand their soul in that way. Yes. Now, basically, the whole idea is that there is a barrier between physical mind, physical ego, and the aspect of the soul. It is that veil that exists in between the two. And so basically what you're discovering now is a Swiss cheese effect that's happening, that's piercing this particular veil. And now you're noticing the, shall we say, beauty of the soul itself. And you're realizing that authenticity is the language of the soul. So the more that you are actually living in authenticity, being your natural self, not being so much in conflict with yourself to decide exactly what you wish to do with your life, then you're living that path of authenticity.
Authenticity, nice word. So that's kind of goes back to the spiritual teachings of know thyself or go within and all of that. And that's what they've been talking about on Earth for thousands of years.
Correct.
Yeah. So, in April, you gave a transmission through your conduit, Brad Johnson. This was, 6-7 months ago, talking about this time, Adronis, between the September 21st and December, what is that, the nocturnal equinox and the summer solstice, as being very...
the winter solstice.
Winter solstice, as being a very, very curious time, very interesting time. And you also said some things 6 months ago that is pretty profound as far as what has already transpired. You talked a bit about the financial situation and the election, and also this a huge data dump that was going to happen. And you said this 6 months ago. Was that, in fact, the whole WikiLeaks things that you were talking about?
Yes, this is primarily what has been administered on your planet as what you would term to be a data dump. The whole idea is that WikiLeaks simply represents that of a governmental proxy. The whole idea in that sense, in regards to its availability of functioning in this way to actually share much of this information is, shall we say, it works together with another particular type of alliance that also has access and connections to many different forms of media channels. So the whole idea in that sense is that they hold as much energy in regards to them functioning as a proxy to get this information out, as does much of your own common networks. So the whole idea in that sense is that these data dumps were being brought forward through, shall we say, a media compliant network of proxy that would therefore allow this information in regards to your own internal government, shall we say, workings, to therefore be revealed to the public. So that is primarily what has taken place, that we estimated between the late summer and the fall time of your 2016 year.
Now, if there is free will, which there is, how is it possible to even make some kind of predictions like you did and come true 6-7 months ago?
Simply because our predictions are never 100%. The whole idea in that sense is that these are forecasts. These are no more different than your own meteorologist, shall we say, looking at the weather map and saying, next week it may start to rain, because we are basically calculating. and therefore giving data in that particular way, that would then equate to this probability. So basically, we calculate in the idea of many different forms of timelines that represent the momentum of a high probability about what is coming through. There really is no such thing in that sense of being able to accurately predict the future. As soon as you bring a prediction into the limelight, you are contaminating the aspect of that timeline, even if it is just, shall we say, a minute contamination. But the whole idea in that sense is that as you give calculation, as you give probability, it is no more different than looking at a forecast of, shall we say, an upcoming storm.
Then so everything is always subject to change because of free will and because it's always now. Always. And it's always
Correct. Now. Yes. Free will, as you know, exists through one particular caveat: choice. That is how free will operates. You basically exist within a realm of confusion, and in order for you to alleviate confusion, you have choice. And being able to work together in that state of choice produces the aspect of free will. Free will is the ability to choose through confusion.
Choose through confusion. For a soul makes a choice every fraction of a second.
Absolutely. Every frame of every moment.
Every frame of every, we're making a choice of where we focus our attention.
Correct.
So let's go back and how long, to the April transmission and this idea of people moving into a fourth density, and some are going to go talk about that because I found that quite fascinating, especially to be culminating around this 3-month period between September and November.
Yes, well, they understand that this is a cycle, and there will be many other cycles within your future. Now, basically, this cycle that is happening is what you would know as the open introductory aspect, as your planet now moves into a gateway of what is known as fourth density intelligence. Fourth density itself represents a hybridization between what you would know as your physical world and the dream plane. And basically what's happening is that the lines in between them are blurring. And basically, in that sense, they reach an establishment to where when you move into fourth density, it will very much be similar to, shall we say, working together within a dream plane with certain forms of connotations to physical reality applied. And so basically what you would understand is manifestations becoming a lot more, shall we say, noticeable and vivid in your reality. The idea of different forms of color spectrums and color hues that are now starting to come together in that sense, noticing, shall we say, certain degrees of a lighter hue of blue or a lighter hue of violet, etc. Many of these particular forms are also aspect. Also being able to look into the idea of communicating with spirit on a much more, shall we say, tangible level in that way, because you are able to actually bring forward the idea that apparition can very much be a part of your reality. And so again, the lines in between different dimensional degrees of planets, different dimensional worlds in that sense, other parallel Earths, are actually going to be quite, shall we say, connotative and collaborative with yourself as well. And being able to work together much more in regards to your feelings, your intuitive senses will become more of a natural way of life. So the idea of everything that's happening right now with these governmental systems, with your politics, etc., are on the way out. That's all part of the transition in that way. So you basically are a fourth density compliant race and a fourth density compliant planet, but you are still moving past, shall we say, the confines of many different veils that still exist within the third density. And so over time, you will discover that more and more of you will start to move into a fourth density compliant civilization, a fourth density compliant degree of race that will actually allow yourself to return back to the earth, less upon the reliance of others and more upon the reliance of yourselves.
And so this fourth density would be a state of consciousness, and the people that are not ready or don't choose to go, they still exist, but not in the state of consciousness of the people that have moved forward a little bit. How's
yes,
best to
they
say
will
that?
operate. they will operate in different dimensional streams in that way. That is no more different than you interacting with your own animal life. You would understand that much of your animal life exists in second density, that much in regards to the elements that make your planet what it is exist in first density. And of course, there is the third density human. But you see how you are all compliant together and you complement each other in that particular way. So no one is really, quote unquote, disappearing. The whole idea in that sense is that there will still be human beings on this planet, both in third and fourth density, as you go through this transition. But fourth density human will be, shall we say, of a very different type than the idea of a third density human. They will still be able to interact together, but they still have, shall we say, differentiations about how they view life and how they conduct themselves through life.
But hasn't it always been like that, where you had people have so different views? They were different species, so to speak, on planet
No, because
Earth?
it's not so much in the idea just of viewpoint, but actually living in the life of that view.
See. Not
so
just an opinion.
In that sense,
not just an opinion.
Basically in that sense, you will notice that the way of living in the fourth density in that sense will actually move away much more from the dramatic cycles of the third density. There simply will not be a participation with it.
Mm-hmm. I get the experience that the feeling, my own experience, Adronis, is that another state of consciousness does not even exist unless I go there.
Of course. But now here's the thing, is that you decide exactly what exists and what doesn't. That's all decision of the viewer. Now, basically, from our perspective, everything exists and nothing can exist at the same time. So you are dancing with paradox. So the whole idea of the solution that you wish to bring to that aspect of paradox is always up to you through the regard of free will.
Mm-hmm. So what's going on now? I mean, give us broad strokes of how. Well, let's talk to some folks who are saying that, okay, I don't understand this third and fourth density thing, and help us to understand more exactly what the opportunity is, and is it more of an opportunity because more souls are wanting to grow and explore and expand and evolve?
Yes, think of it in the idea of the aquarium analogy that we often give, is that you are a fish in an aquarium and you are existing within the water. And the time is coming where you are noticing that your body is transmuting. It is actually starting to transform. And that the water can no longer sustain your degree of growth. So basically what you are doing is making your own particular efforts to climb out of the aquarium and become an oxygen-based life form. That is basically an analogy about what's happening through this third to fourth density transition. You are basically having your body transmuted. Your DNA is changing. Everything about you is beginning to change. You realize that reality itself, as it previously was, is no longer compliant with your degrees of evolution. And so, as you are spiritually evolving, as you are physically transmuting, you are removing yourself from the boxed-in aquarium and starting to move yourself into a whole new reality. You are still sharing the same space on Earth,
yes,
but the context in regards to density has changed because of the transmutational effect.
So we as soul, Adronis, are changing our own DNA as we go.
Yes, the sun is primarily responsible for this.
The sun.
Now also understand, yes, the idea of what you would know as your galactic transit, of moving into an area of the galaxy where there is a great deal more of cosmic energy that is actually in that sense beginning to influence your sun. Now, if you were basically to look back a couple of decades ago, you would discover that your sun was once yellow. As you look upon your sun now, it is much more white. So the whole idea in that sense is noticing a density change. If you're truly looking into the quote-unquote proof of density, look at your sun. That is the whole idea. So you are basically looking at a transition from a yellow star to a white star. And that is basically what you would know as a fourth density compliant star. And that is basically where you are moving. So all the rays of the sun, the cosmic energy that's coming upon your planet right now, is not the result of a global warming. It is the idea in that sense of a global transitioning. You are moving yourselves into this transformation happening upon your planet that really has nothing to do with, shall we say, human influence. It is more so in the idea of a galactic cycle. Again, we have been able to communicate with thousands of different worlds that in what you would term as your past have gone through the exact same thing, that you're going through right now. It's somewhat different because there is much more, shall we say, intervened assistance happening along your planet. But you're moving from a third density civilization to a fourth density civilization because of this light transmutation through your sun and the cosmic energy that is now beginning to, shall we say, encompass your star system. There is a great deal more of what you would know as cosmic dust and cosmic clouds that exist in your star system now than there has ever been in history.
So do we essentially live, get nourished and grow and through the sun? And
yes,
that's everything. That's
correct. That's where all life stems from. That's how your planet even gets its water, from the sun. Everything to what the earth has made herself to be has come from the sun. The sun is the nurturer. Just as the earth is the nurturer to you, the sun is the nurturer to the planet, to many of the planets as well. Everything in regards to its gravitation, to its alignments, to its phases, everything in that sense is, shall we say, operated in alliance together with the sun. It is all part of what you would know as a microcosmic, macrocosmic relationship, from parent to child, parent to child, parent to child.
If you'd like to ask Adronis a question, 888-663-6386, email patrick@oneradionetwork.com. Adronis, state of consciousness that is being conduit or channeled by Brad Johnson, who is a human being person, and he lives in Vancouver. His website is realitywhisperer.com. My name is Patrick Timpone. So why do human bodies often age?
The idea in regards to the age cycle is all part of, shall we say, an inner clock that is actually working together through the body in regards to, shall we say, genetic manipulation. So the whole idea in regards to your radioactive isotopes that are basically, shall we say, being fueled through the sun is all part and parcel of allowing this field to become compliant within your own DNA. And so basically looking into, shall we say, different configurations of DNA actually creates an age cycle. What you will begin to discover, and again, this could be a while down the road, is that you actually do have the capability to turn the genes off that are responsible for your aging. But the whole idea in regards to aging right now has become activated to serve the compliance of experiences for you to, shall we say, move into the impacts that you all have in that sense made throughout the planet. So the whole idea of, shall we say, the mortality to exist commonly between 70, 80, 90, 100 years, etc., is all part of the appropriate format at this time for humanity to make the appropriate impacts necessary that are reflective of the collective consciousness. But everything as it pertains to aging is activated within DNA.
So impacts, you're saying, just to work out their karma.
Correct.
So working out their karma too. Here's a question about the sun. What is the purpose of, this is from Rich Adronis, what is the purpose of chemtrail spraying, keeping sun frequency from shifting our frequency?
It is basically what you would refer to as a type of artificial agenda in regards to, shall we say, environmental control. Basically, shall we say, a dirty version of interplanetary sunscreen. Now, basically, in that sense, much in regards to your chemtrails have different forms of agendas behind them. Much in that sense can also be quite toxic. Basically, what they're attempting to do is, shall we say, no more different than putting up an aluminum shield around the areas of the atmosphere to attempt to slow the process in regards to the transmutation cycle that represents the sun. So basically, in that sense, it is not so much slowing the process, but causing much more of a dilution in regards to the idea of the sun rays to actually, shall we say, meld more with the toxicity of the chemtrails and actually being able to pass that into the skin of individuals. So basically, this is again why many people are very much against the idea of the chemtrails themselves, noticing that they are very toxic and that when it bonds together with the gamma rays of the sun itself, is that this is actually what can apply very commonly, known as skin cancer. So the whole idea in that sense is working together with more herbal products, more in the idea of herbal medicines in that way, can assist in the idea of the alleviation of this toxicity. Also being able to work together within your own way of the dismantling of a chemtrail program.
How about one state of consciousness and how it might affect the effects of chemtrails and other chemicals and
Yes, this has also been proven to happen as well, too. It's through the idea of mass collective meditations in that way and being able to dissolve certain forms of chemtrails. This can be done, and there are actually even many tools upon your planet, such as what you would know as your crystals, your orgone, etc., that can assist in the dissolving of the chemtrails and basically absorbing much of, shall we say, the negative energies in that degree of chemicals, toxins in that way that can actually be absorbed through these conduits. Even your own nature, trees themselves, have the ability to absorb much of these particular toxins.
Mm-hmm. What essentially keeps souls from moving from, say, a third to a fourth density in consciousness? What are the dynamics behind what they need to think about or change in themselves to move forward?
There is only one dynamic, and that's karma. And that's it. The whole idea is that if you are constantly weighing yourself down with excessive emotion, you are, shall we say, barricading yourself in the box. The fish becomes too heavy in the aquarium, and it does not have enough momentum and strength to move itself beyond the water. And so that's primarily what happens. Emotions actually have a mass to them, and they are a very, very intense voltage. We would say this in the form of an example, that if you have a man existing in an open space and he is venting like crazy, feeling very, very angry, everybody immediately starts to move away from his vicinity like a sphere. And because this man, in that sense, is venting and exploding with so much emotional outrage, nobody really wants to be around him. And why is that? That is because emotion is a very powerful energy. It is a very, very high voltage. If you were to put it on a Richter scale, the idea of the needles would be going hysterical. So the whole idea is the more that you hold on to these particular emotions, you bury them deeply within yourself, you are sinking and weighing yourself down to go more deeper into the ocean, rather than, in that sense, being able to come up from air. So the whole idea and what's preventing much of the individuals from moving into fourth density is the ability to, shall we say, working together with their emotions and not being able to see exactly, shall we say, the opportunity to being able to express these feelings, express these emotions, and allow them to come out naturally so that you can learn from them, so that you can evolve from them. So it is the idea of the lack of your own evolution that becomes the, shall we say, stagnant factor of those remaining in third density.
What would you say, Adronis, would be the biggest misconceptions that humans, souls in the human body, have about the emotions or the mind?
The whole idea in regards to the emotional side, in that sense, is that emotions are just simply not to be conveyed. Don't be rude, just bury it down, don't worry about it, think about something else. This is not correct. This, again, is what creates the aspect of weight, and this will, in that sense, weigh you down. So the whole key here is being able to admit feelings as they come up. Be mindful of your feelings as they come up. We are not saying for you to vent at everybody else, but being able to, shall we say, let your emotions out in a constructive space, in a space where you can hold love for yourself, a space where you can actually allow these emotions to be shared. Now, the aspect of the mind is vast. But the whole idea in regards to the mind is that it has been associated very much to the degree of logic. And in that sense, there is much more to the mind than just that. Your mind is basically your creation center. It is everything that represents the thought matrix. And that thoughts are all triggered through feeling. And so basically, the mind and the heart are meant to work together as one. So it is not just looking at the product of the mind as a logical machine and feeling that through cold logic, that is going to be your idealism of working through life. You won't get very far in regards to personal evolution. So the whole key here is being able to bring the heart and the mind together as one. The mind, again, is a wonderful manifestation device. It is a powerful construct that is helping you to align yourself to the reality that you prefer. But in order for it to be utilized appropriately, allow the alliance of feelings to come together to share with yourself that this is the particular life that I wish to live genuinely and authentically. That through the feeling centers that are coming through, the mind therefore propagates the appropriate thoughts aligned vibrationally to allow a manifestation to come together. So you could think of the mind as the thought builder, of being able to build out of thought, and that you can look at the heart as the feeling center of the true nature of the language of spirit.
But so many people talk about that they have thoughts and feelings that they don't like, and they're dragging them down, and they just don't know what to do with that.
Correct. And the whole idea is that that is all part of belief systems. The belief systems that you inherit at a younger age, it may be in that sense religious based, it may be educationally based, it may be through the parents, etc. All of these particular belief systems are magnets, and you are attracting all of the thoughts and feelings that are representative of the magnets of those beliefs. This is why many of you in that sense do work on your planet that you really do not enjoy. You have jobs, but you really can't stand it. You just do it for a paycheck in that way. And so these are all part of the towers of belief that you have erected within yourself. Belief systems are basically in that sense the very walls of the boxes that you are containing yourselves within. The whole idea of living a genuine life in the purest way possible is to have no belief systems, period. So the whole idea is that all of your belief systems are basically the confinements that you're placing. The idea of saying, I'm doing this and I really don't like doing this, I'm working in this way and I really don't like working this way. You have the opportunity to change that. The reason you do not give yourself the opportunity to change is because you see yourself in lack. You feel that it is futile for you to change, because if I change, then my whole world becomes unraveled. Exactly. That's the point. You are meant to unravel yourself. Basically understand that much of your great teachers went through very, very similar cycles, and they needed to break themselves down and shatter themselves so that they could see the importance of every piece of themselves to build themselves back up. And that's the entire process, deconstruction and reconstruction.
Why is it necessary to go through challenges and discomfort like it's always darkest before the dawn in evolution? What's the mechanics behind that?
The idea in that sense is that you are working with the extremes of what you know is not authentic. In order for you to understand what is authentic, you must first understand what isn't. And that is basically why many of you go through these shadow aspects of yourselves to basically realize, well, now that I've healed all that, now I know exactly what I'm going to pursue. And the light shines on you because you are now so bright from looking at such darkness.
So that could be an explanation why people create some diseases.
Yes, you exist in drama to realize that there is no such thing as drama. Therefore, you move past it and realize that diseases and ailments and illnesses in that way are all products of emotional and mental discontent.
Products of emotional and mental discontent. So this body-mind-soul connection is, it appears that they're separate, but they are one at the same time as well.
They are not separate in that particular way. They are only separate in the degree of levels that you have dictated. The whole idea in that sense is you have one energy body. You have one aspect of energy. But you have therefore through your society divided it into different levels, which you know as the physical body, the mental body, the emotional body, the spiritual body, the etheric body, etc. All of these different bodies have been categorized because that's more of the human condition. But truly, when you're looking at the energy field, you are looking at one pure field.
One pure. I guess at some level, it's all one.
Correct.
It's all God.
That's the whole idea. That's the grandioseness of creation,
Yeah.
is that you are all one, all together, all here. Everybody is part of the one.
Mm-hmm. So then what teachers have said evidently is true, that as each soul maybe evolves a bit and more expands more, becomes more aware, then all other souls everywhere are lifted up a little bit as well.
Correct. It is what you would know as the small gear within this infinite machine that is starting to move very, very profoundly. And as it does, all other gears must correspond to that particular way. So as one particular gear moves, all must correspond in kind. That is the nature of the infinitum of the machine itself that represents creation.
Wow. That gear is kind of like this gigantic, huge swatch, right? That everything is kind of cool. Dear Patrick, very interesting program. So our choice is to be one with Source, which we are already. However, darkness wants to keep us in duality, ? Okay.
Correct.
So talk about that and answer. Her name is Liz.
Yes, well, the whole idea is that as soul, as spirit, you all emerge from light. You have all come from light realms. You have all come from realms that are truly beauteous in ways that cannot be described. When you come to Earth, you realize that the big challenge of coming to Earth is to bring it back into authenticity, is to help in that sense look into your own personal liberation, while many people in that sense are discovering their own liberation. You have discovered through much of your ancient history thousands of years of tyrannical oppression, of empires, of kingdoms, to where there has always been this designation of commoners or peasants or slaves and kings and queens and emperors. These again all represent the epitome of separation, the aspect of feeling that there must be gods among men and feeling that they must have all of the toys, all of the treasures, all of the values that make them feel superior. So there is a superiority-inferiority complex, and this all comes through the idea of a dualistic planet. But the whole idea in that sense is that the dualism of this world has all been established based upon the idea of resources, of the idea in that sense of seeing treasures upon this planet, to where, again, many other different forms of civilizations that have existed beyond your world have intervened unethically upon your world, and in that sense basically made all of these different forms of changes so that they themselves could influence the human race and have much of the resources for themselves, and that they also established themselves in this way as gods to many of your kings and queens and emperors, etc. And these kings and queens and emperors basically see themselves as this liaison, as this mediator, as this prophet towards the gods, and that only they deserve the degrees of greatness. And that is what created several forms of segregation. So the ideas in that sense of unlawful, unethical interventions through many other different extraterrestrials throughout ancient times has actually been one of the responsible catalysts in, shall we say, causing the human race to become divided. Because again, what men are very, very good at is, shall we say, conjuring up ideas. And again, because this conjuring up of ideas becomes so strong within a certain individual, they say, well, I can have this all for myself. I don't really need to give this to anybody else because I would feel I would lose my uniqueness of this situation. So through thousands of years in the idea of influence, as it represents division and separation, this is where many new souls are coming upon the planet right now to, shall we say, incarnate upon the world and transform it and start getting the gears moving again. So basically you are helping to resolve thousands of years of applied karma collectively to the planet so that the planet can now get back on the track, and you basically refer to this as your golden age.
Yeah. So these new souls could be souls that have spent lifetimes here on Earth and are also other realities that maybe were even at some level more evolved?
Yes, in certain ways. Now, basically understand that what you would know as your world leaders as they exist today were in many lifetimes past kings, emperors, priests, etc., and basically had a very similar control grid as what's happening upon the planet right now. So these kings and emperors have been incarnating again and again and again and again, lifetime after lifetime, generation after generation, to continue to reestablish this order because humanity has not yet learned from it. We can say now that humanity is now starting to learn from it. So basically this cycle that has been occurring for many different civilizations that have risen and fallen will no longer be happening again, because many of you have woken up to the point of critical mass where the idea of repeating the aspect of a civilization rising and falling will no longer be necessary. So the whole idea in that sense is if it wasn't for this particular intervention plan where many souls are coming upon the planet and becoming pioneers of liberation, you would all in that sense be on the precipice of destruction once again, and humanity would need to reset itself. Fortunately, that will not happen because you are starting to realize the empowerment of yourselves.
So that would lend to some of the conjecture over the years that many of the political leaders continue to reincarnate from same genealogical aspects too, the same bodies like the Tudors and people like that. That's very fascinating. So these could all be reincarnations of kings in 14th century or 12th century.
Absolutely.
Very
yes,
possible.
You're correct.
Very possible.
Yes.
Wow. So then there's enough souls now, Adronis, that have been waking up and over the last 50 years or so, I guess, since that there's enough energy there where then these dark forces or these people that want to control things, they why why is it they just don't get stronger and overcome the ones? How does that work?
The whole idea in that sense is that they have been following a blueprint for a certain amount of time. Huh. The idea of the blueprint would therefore become void once the people start to awaken. So once there is an awakening that happens, they can no longer follow, shall we say, the practical playbook of the blueprint, because the blueprint now becomes invalidated based upon the collective consciousness being able to awaken themselves up and, shall we say, snap out of trance as it relates to the idea of this oppression. So because there has been, in that sense, a snapping out of much of this oppression, the old blueprints that have worked for centuries and millennia no longer apply. And so this is why they are struggling, is because when humanity wakes up and realize exactly what's been happening under their noses, then basically this blueprint will therefore become nullified.
So that's certainly evident, and I would suspect that this current election cycle is demonstrating that to a little bit, to some extent.
Yes, absolutely.
No. Can you stay with us?
Yes.
Okay, let's do a station break and we'll continue.
Broadcasting from the beautiful Hill Country in Texas, this is OneRadioNetwork.com.
Of what you see going on with planet Earth right now, today, 2016.
Well, understand that much of your marketing, in that sense, your marketplaces, will be shaken up over the next few years. And again, that will be of no surprise. It's all part and parcel in that sense of actually being able to unify the currencies, which will eventually happen. There is no specific date for that. But we do feel that there will be, shall we say, much more improved fluctuations within the market as it represents your precious ores, from what you would know as your gold and silver. This is in that sense more so in reliance to the idea of the demand to purchase it, because of the idea of what you would know as backed legal tender. And so the whole idea is that those particular aspects within the market will still, shall we say, be on fluctuation levels, but more so around 2017 will have much more of a higher rise. But the idea in regards to your markets are fundamentally changing, because much of the shifts of power on your planet, in that way of speaking, are again becoming in a shuffle. So basically understand that much of your, shall we say, dominion as it pertains to monetary funds are moving more back into the control of the East rather than the Western world. Mm-hmm. So basically, because there are those shifts, there will be fluctuations within the marketplace that may represent, shall we say, those that are becoming unsettled with the tidal waves that are happening while on this ship of moving into a new collective consciousness of fourth density.
Mm-hmm. So folks who deal with lack and they work on, they go to abundance workshops and things like that, what are some tips you can give them for them to realize the currency or the exchange methods they need to support themselves?
Well, understand that money itself simply is a prop. It is a prop that you are basically looking at as a measurement to your own value. And that's the whole degree, is that collectively you have decided to utilize something like money to helping you understand the aspect of exchange, of value in yourselves. So when a person basically sees themselves in lack and feeling that they must work a job, for example, that they really do not like to get a paycheck, they have basically chosen voluntarily to become enslaved to the prop of money. And that is the whole idea. You do not have to be that, but because, again, of the towers of belief system that represent your reality, you are therefore creating this magnetic attraction, is that money owns me. Money must be brought forward, even though I do not like this job, and I must continue to be in this kind of servitude. So that is all part and parcel of your beliefs. So the whole idea is that we would imagine you to look at the opposite of everything that pertains to this belief. So basically, when you're acknowledging that a belief exists, you're allowing that belief to come into your reality and speak to you for what it means as it represents the root of yourself that has caused this belief system to sprout. As you are able to look at that and acknowledge that, yes, that is the very reason why this has been stemmed, this will again create a lot of emotional release. The idea of sadness, the idea of anger, the idea of feeling upset with yourself, but let all of that out. Because as soon as you let all of that out, the tower that represented the belief system is now starting to implode. Because now you are releasing all of this particular form of suppressed energy of emotion that can now be released and that can now, in that sense, be evacuated back into the ethereal realms. And then, When you are in that state, you are now empty. Now, you are bringing forward positive reinforcement that again represents its opposite. I am no longer going to feel that I am enslaved with money. I am going to allow money to work for me. So perhaps that means I want to follow a career of something that I have always wanted to create as an entrepreneur. Perhaps I'll be a musician. Perhaps I'll be an artist. Perhaps I'll be a dancer. Perhaps I'll be a teacher. All of these exciting things that truly are thrilling to me. Now you're bringing in positive reinforcement. You're feeling good about yourself. You're actually starting to feel good about the utilization of money because it is representing this prop of equivalent exchange, of value to yourself. And so equivalent exchange in regards to that scale is now moving more into the property of serving you rather than feeling that you are in servitude, the aspect of a prop that you have therefore created. So basically, you could look at it in the idea that a toy has enslaved you rather than that sense of feeling that you are the creator of this toy representing the prop of money.
Adronis is with us. He lives, on Sirius. Please ask Adronis about the role of the Anunnaki in our universe. Anunnaki.
Yes, well, understand that the Anunnaki, are much more convoluted than what many people believe. You are not looking at one particular race. You are looking at many. The idea in that sense of the Anunnaki in regards to common belief is that they were, the gods that came into the times of your Sumeria and basically attempted to enslave the human race. No. This is more so of what you would know as an imposter race, and the idea in that sense that much in regards to those stories were actually a manufacturer in the idea of actual, truth. But the whole idea in that, yes, there were certain forms of entities that came to your planet that posed themselves as the gods to serve a means to an end that related to the idea of genetic wealth, that represented the idea of resourceful wealth, to the idea of the acclaiming of much of your own precious ores on your planet. But the whole idea is that the original Anunnaki, in that sense, much of the original races, were basically what you would consider to be, much of the founding fathers and mothers as it relates to your race's creation. They were basically the masters that were allowing the blueprint of the human genome to be created through their contributing parties, which represent the 22 different races. So the whole idea in that sense is that there was a time in your, ancient past that related to the idea of the suppression of much of the DNA. This was done purposely. This was done intentionally. And it was much in regards to after the fall of Atlantis that this took place. And the reason why it took place is because humanity was not ready for the power that it was given. And so therefore there needed to be a suppression based upon the DNA that came together through the original creators that stated humanity needs to work through this as it's going through a great deal of dark ages at this time. But once they start to reawaken themselves, the DNA will come back online, and they will be able to realize that through their galactic transits, through the idea of how their sun is changing, through their own personal transmutation. So much of the DNA that has been locked up in that sense in centuries and millennia past is now slowly but surely beginning to reactivate and will continue to do so generation after generation.
So nothing is permanent.
Correct.
Nothing is permanent. And soul has the ability to facilitate working with spirit or whatever you want to call to change and to grow and to turn around anything that was, quote, done to them, unquote. But it was their karma to have it done.
Yes.
Right. So
that's
they could
all
learn.
part of what you would know. Think of it in the idea of having young children access to a gun locker.
I see.
And that they're all basically pulling out guns and saying, we're in power right now. No, the guns needed to be taken away from them. And they basically needed to be inside a reality where they felt you must learn the aspect of discipline before utilizing something so powerful that could harm another, that could harm yourself or harm other people. And so basically this suppression effect was done through the genetics, not to feel that they could be, shall we say, masters of manifestation and matter manipulators in that sense, and actually being able to control other people's minds. So basically much in regards to that had been suppressed so that humanity could grow, evolve, and learn.
Rich in Pittsburgh writes, is CERN being used as a portal to another universe?
Yes, but the whole idea is that there are many different forms of stops, shall we say, interventions, to prevent this from going any further. Understand that there is a regulation that is happening upon your planet and has been happening in that form of a paradox, somewhat contradictory, through a span of time. You basically have what's known as a time corporation, otherwise known as time police. These are basically agents that exist, shall we say, several decades within your future and are actually policing timelines as part of a sanitation effect to ensuring that humanity is able to evolve. Anything that prevents that idea of a sanitation effect will be intervened upon through what you would know as time-traveling agents. And so the whole idea of the sabotage that has been happening constantly with CERN is a result of these people.
So let's go into a little bit more of what you talked about. I don't know how long ago the transmission I heard was done in April, but so you may have been talking about it before April, Adronis, of how special this time, the autumnal equinox, September 21st, and the winter solstice, December 21st, why now? What's going on, and how can people participate in some kind of spiritual unfoldment?
Well, understand everything happens in cycles in that particular way. And you have certainly reached that state of maturity through the measurement of your own collective consciousness vibrationally to see exactly how the collective consciousness has shifted. Through the shift of your own collective consciousness has allowed a gate to open. And that this is basically representing that of the first primary gate that is opening, that is moving you into a fourth density compliant planet. As we stated, there will be more cycles for more people to move into fourth density. But this is basically what you could refer to as the early bird approach, is that many people are starting to realize that they're getting a taste of fourth density. They're starting to move more into that energy. They're starting to feel that they're lighter on their feet. They're starting to feel that they are actually living within a, shall we say, dream plane in that way. These are all part of symptoms and side effects in that way of them moving into a different flux of density. But the whole idea between the equinox and the solstice to what has been predicted is the idea of this first opening cycle, shall we say, like a bubble that is popped in that way for you to see another particular matrix that is on the horizon and that is in the particular context right now of fusing entirely for you to become a deeply and fully immersed fourth density society. But a gateway has opened and you are indeed now a fourth density compliant race, moving more and more into the energies of that fourth density as the lines continue to be blurred.
Is this part and parcel what we're experiencing now? What the whole 2012 meme was about for many years?
Yes, well, understand that 2012 was a benchmark point in regards to the growth of your collective consciousness. It was basically a shift. During that time, there was what you would know as a singularity inversion. Now, understand that your universe is a singularity. It is a black hole in that way. That basically around this time, this represented an shall we say, inverted aspect of unfoldment. And this is basically what, shall we say, caused a type of mitosis between one universe that therefore became two. So you are basically transiting yourself through a rainbow bridge, a prism connector between one universe that would represent your old paradigm and another universe that would represent your new paradigm. And this prism of light that represents a rainbow spectrum is the bridge that many of you are crossing from one universe into another. So the reason why there is an unfoldment of the universe that took place around the time of the late 2012 was all because of a new density level that was actually being entered into your universe. You could see this as a universal upgrade. This was not just affecting your galaxy, but everything within the universe. And so basically you existed in what's known as a 12 density structure. You are now existing in a 13 density structure. But this particular density in that sense is now being amalgamated back into a 12 density platform to where the third and fourth density in that sense are developing themselves as a new hybrid density. And you are moving yourself up the ladder in that fourth density. So the idea of this 13th density was to come together and create an amalgamation effect of this ladder of a 12 density system, which is the current construct of your universal dynamic. But in order for that to happen, the idea of the inversion needed to take place so that this could therefore be implanted on a multi-universal level.
So when one locks into a particular density, as you call it, fourth, it offers them some protection. in a way.
Yes, well, many of you refer to this as fourth density or fifth dimension.
Fifth dimension.
And so the whole idea in that sense is that fifth dimension and density in that sense are in that sense related, but they do represent two different things. If we were to go back into the aquarium example, the water itself would represent the density. The frame set that holds the water would be the dimensions. So that is basically the whole idea in regards to differentiations. Dimensions correspond more to grids and to different forms of dimensional lines in that way. Density represents the aspect of mass as molecules, as atoms, move in regards to, shall we say, acceleration or lack thereof as it pertains to the density constant.
Adronis, can you give our listeners around the world some tips and or ideas from your perspective of how they can open up to some of the things you're saying, grow, let's keep it simple, just to grow spiritually? What are some things that they can do?
Give yourself permission to love yourself. That's the most important thing we can say, is that, again, if you want to follow a path of true authenticity, look into the energies that you are constantly manifesting in this particular moment. Are you in complement with yourself? Well, no, I'm not. So I need to look into those particular types of energies. Have the, shall we say, capacity for you to look inside yourself and exactly see what you are attracting, and look into the beliefs that are currently manifested within your reality. And that love of yourself is the capability, it is the catalyst that is helping these particular belief structures reduce themselves, lower themselves down, dissolve themselves. So the whole key here in that sense is no longer to feel that you are in an abundance of lack, but in an abundance of love and prolific nature. So being able to allow your emotions to be expressed, allow your feelings to be expressed, living the life that you know you have always wanted to. And one of the grandest teachings of that is to return back into your inner child, is to return back into that state of innocence and learn to play with reality more. Because when you play with reality more, you start to see exactly where all these joyful spots are, and you will want to play with these joyful spots a lot more. But before you can, you need to look at everything that is preventing you from seeing those joyful spots and being able to bring love, so that you are repelling that energy of what does not serve, and you are attracting the energy about what does. So again, this all functions through the law of equivalent exchange, is that in order for you to obtain something new, that which you hold in the old must be replaced, must move itself out. And so that's the whole idea, is being able to move yourself into alignment about what serves you rather than what doesn't.
You talked about the idea of time, and I think that's what has tripped many of us souls for a long time up on planet Earth, is believing that time is real and that the only thing we can do is to act as if, because it's just a now experience, we have to kind of, if you will, fake it till we make it, kind of, have faith.
It's more so in the idea that the more that you live here and now, the more timeless you will become. Yeah. That is, shall we say, the antidote to time is living in the moment.
That's the antidote, I guess, of aging as well.
Correct. Mm-hmm. That is how you're able to fundamentally give longevity to yourself, is that when you are contained here and now. The past and the future are side effects. They are side effects of illusion. They are side effects of memory. Memory itself is time. Time itself is karma. And that's basically why you're playing the karma, time, memory game, because they all interlock together with nested degrees of time that you stay trapped within, rather than seeing what is available to you presently here in this moment.
I'm sure there's a lot of souls that are listening right now and will be listening to this podcast thinking to themselves, wait a minute, what's the deal? Why wasn't I taught all this stuff?
Well, again, this is all part of what you would know as kings, queens, and emperors wanting to see themselves gods among men, so that the commoners could not have this information. Mm-hmm. So basically, look back into that context and you will discover why.
Mm-hmm. Susie writes in, so it is hard to be who we are, divine, because of the confusion, trauma, density in the way of our soul, our spirit from coming into our body, and the emotion creates problems, i.e. density, which keeps our soul out.
Here's the idea. Problems are something that is subjectively applied. There is nothing within all of creation itself that gives you problems. You give yourself problems. You give yourself difficulty. You give yourself the ability of the hard or the tough, simply based upon the idea of the belief systems. Life in actuality, when you strip all the belief systems away, is very simple. It is very easy. It is very open. It is very wondrous. But because many of you have been taught to feel that everything must be done in an effort and not to disappoint other people, and basically conform yourselves to the idea of many different forms of rules, regulations, moralities, and ethics, this is what creates the substance as it pertains to oppression. And it is the oppression principle itself, the control grid that has in that sense been upon your planet for centuries upon centuries upon centuries. So the whole idea right now is that you are discovering that life does not have to be difficult as you have been assigning it. That is all part and parcel of the beliefs that you have applied within yourself to feel that, oh my goodness, life is impossible. We can't do anything here. And again, as long as you continue to subscribe to that energy, it will become very, very difficult because you are creating it. You're giving the validity of your own difficulty. The universe isn't. The universe is just doing what you're saying. All right, well, Joe here thinks that he is basically making life difficult, so we'll shine those mirrors back at him. And so life will become more difficult. But if you tell yourself, I'm going to get past this, I'm going to surpass this, I'm going to move past this whole scope of feeling that I am feeling enslaved by a job, because you enslave yourself. You voluntarily enslave yourselves. Nobody else outside of you is enslaving you. It is you giving yourself permission to become enslaved. And so the whole idea here in that sense is being able to look at all of these principles that you feel confined by and negotiating with them, being able to negotiate with the energies, bring them into your awareness and forgive them. That is the most important aspect, is to forgive all of these aspects and let yourself become empty. As you become empty, now let the flow of complement come through you and fluidically pass through you like a river. And that is what's going to allow you to greatly transcend yourself, to move yourself into a whole new alignment of becoming a person you never thought you could be, as long as you see yourself in the value of knowing that you can change.
Very interesting. We've had so many people, Adronis, over the years who have been diagnosed with a, quote, disease, unquote, of cancer or whatever, and
yes,
they just believed that their body could heal, and it did. I mean, they did a lot of things. They did herbs and they cleansed, but the essence of their healing was their belief system that the body could heal.
Correct. Our particular recommendation for anybody who may be going through something like cancer is to realize you have no cancer at all. And basically in that sense is that when you realize that you're no longer subjected to the feeling of burden that you are in that sense having cancer, you're actually being able to dissolve it. Because you're telling your body, I am healthy, I am pure, I am completely in my state of well-being in the greatest ways possible. Body will correspond to that. Everything will autocorrect. The whole idea in that sense is that there's much more of a quote-unquote burden that relates to someone telling you that you have cancer rather than someone oblivious to knowing about it. People in that sense that are actually oblivious to having cancer will actually surpass it. And that is in that sense much more of a higher suppression, or shall we say a higher expansion in that way. The suppression itself is when people worry about it so much. They feel that they need to go through radiation therapy or chemotherapy, or their doctors are telling you have this, you have that. But the whole idea in that sense is that is all making it worse. It is not making it better. So the whole idea in that sense is that if you do realize you have cancer, work together in the idea of the knowingness that this will not affect your body, that you are living holistically, that you are living in complement with yourself, and that your body has the ability to naturally heal and continuing to complement the body as you naturally do. As you do that, cancer itself will indeed dissolve.
From Sirius, Adronis is with us, is OneRadioNetwork.com, the last day of October 2016. On the telephone, what's your first name and where are you calling from?
Hey, good morning, Patrick. It's Bridget from Florida.
Hi, Bridget. Go ahead. You're on the air with Adronis.
Well, I think you probably just answered everything what you just said. I mean, this is an amazing call. Thank you so much. I guess the thing I wanted to say was more of, you know, it's this struggle that I'm having trying to make ends meet and make it, you know, it's the money thing, I guess, and then also the food thing. I mean, I've always been, you know, what do you recommend as far as like how we eat? I know it's all a mindset, but it just seems like the foods have gotten so bad that it's hard to find what really feeds our bodies the best way.
You're having a hard time figuring out what foods that are serving you?
Yeah, that's going to keep us strongest and healthiest and.
Okay, well, let's get his thoughts on that. First off, on the money, Adronis. She's struggling with that.
Well,
okay.
Firstly, the money situation, again, is everything that is basically telling you about your own lack in that way. So if you're feeling that there are financial difficulties in that sense, it's your own self telling you, Bridget, you're not meant to be in this particular area. This is not your particular theme to explore, because there are actually other avenues for you that you can look at that will actually improve the situation. But because there has been that belief of feeling that money has been very, very difficult to obtain, or that there in that sense are questionabilities in regards to the state of one's own value, this is what creates the upset. This is actually the tummy ache in that way as it relates to the idea of value. As we've stated, money is a prop. So the whole idea is that if you are looking to move into a particular avenue where you feel that you will get some money, but you really do not appreciate what you are doing, then that basically becomes the catalyst to conflict right there. It can also be in the idea that you may also love very much what you're doing, but you're not bringing enough money into the situation to support yourself. And again, that still has to do with the same thing. You're not seeing the value about what you're able to offer in the state of service. So therefore, giving yourself more expansive opportunities, talking to other people, doing areas that are outside of traditional avenues as it pertains to your own promotion. So the whole key here is being able to completely refine yourself, become empty, and let the universe communicate with you and send you people that can actually help complement you in this particular improving your financial system altogether. Now, secondly, in regards to the idea of your diet, the convolution in that sense is basically what you would know as everybody telling you exactly what not to eat and what to eat. And that's actually what's causing the confusion itself, is everybody having these different perspectives or having different dietary plans, etc. And it does not have to be complicated. Our particular recommendation for anybody, if they have the means, grow your own garden. And in that sense, plant your own seeds and make all of that beautiful vegetables available to you and consume that. If you are not able to grow a garden, go into what you would know as farmers markets. Look into everything that is truly organic in that way. You can also do this by communicating with your own body, and that there is a technique on your planet that many of you refer to as kinesiology, and being able to muscle test, energy test, what foods your body prefers. And the more that you continue to do this, the more that you are working together with your body, because your body will tell you everything that it requires in order for it to retain the sustenance. So being able to keep yourself on an organic level, it's also important to look at the idea of the portioning of foods as well too, because if you eat too much, that can also have complications. So the whole idea is that, yes, organic truly is the way to go. It's like looking again at much of the indigenous people about how they lived. They all ate organically. They all ate through the wild. They all ate this organic nutrition. And so the whole idea is that does not have to be so much convoluted. The more purer your food that you are hopefully able to create yourselves, or going through, in that sense, entrusted farmers markets in that way, the more that your body will receive all of these cellular, shall we say, ingredients needed to completely improve itself. But the whole idea here really isn't so much about diet. It is emotion and mentality first. When that has therefore been arranged appropriately, your diet will fall naturally into place, which means that if you complement yourself, if you complement your body, if you complement your mind, you will naturally gravitate yourself to eating all the food that your body requires, because you are in the mood to see that change happen.
Adronis, stay there, Bridget. For Bridget and others listening, how can they get in touch with belief systems or ideas that they've aligned themselves with and accepted as real? How do they see which ones are there and maybe they're not aware of?
By sensing triggers within their reality. And so the triggers can often be emotional upset. So basically in that feeling that if you wake up in the morning and you're groaning about being able to have to get up and go to work, that's a trigger right there. Look at that. That is therefore giving you the aspect of saying there is an emotional assignment with me doing this particular task. Become very, very aware of that emotion. get yourself into a clear space when you have the time to do so, and look into that emotional state. Why am I feeling upset when I go to this job? Well, because I feel like I'm enslaving myself to having to work for this very small amount of money just to make ends meet. Isn't there something better? And so now you're just allowing that emotion to come out. You need to let it out in all the ways that it can, and basically let yourself become empty again. So again, through emptiness comes the idea of positive reinforcement. Well, I'm going to change this. I'm going to make something better because I'm going to look into the heart of my own value. How do I feel with my value right now? Oh, it doesn't feel so good. So I'm going to look into the emotions that are causing convolution as it pertains to my own value. I may start talking with a best friend and saying, what do you think I'm really, really good at? And actually being able to get good encouragement and good support if I'm not willing to look at it because I still feel numb about it. So what you're basically doing is you're stimulating yourself to feel valuable. As you start to feel valuable, all of these emotions themselves are being released, and now again you're in that state of emptiness, and now you can start to fill yourself with all the positive aspect. Ask your younger self, your inner child, what did I always want to be when I was younger? Oh, I wanted to be a dancer. All right, can I do dancing right now? Well, of course, I love it, but could I actually make that into a career? Of course you can. But again, it's all part and parcel of what you deem valid. You give yourself permission to be in lack. You also give yourself permission to be enriched. You have to convince yourself you are the gatekeeper.
Wonderful.
Okay, Bridge.
All right.
Okay, Bridge. Let us know how we can help. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you as well.
Jonas is with us. Patrick Timpone, OneRadioNetwork.com. The last day of October. We're going to do a couple spots here, and then we'll continue and wrap it up. But if you'd like to get in the program, and communicate, 888-663-6386. Email patrick@oneradionetwork.com. All day today through midnight tonight. The promo code INFINITE, INFINITE, can be used at any Surthrival link on One Radio Network for 15% off on colostrum, elk velvet antler, pine pollen, the bone broth, the, let's see, what else do we have? Oh, the shaga and the reishi. Really great products, Myron Glass, excellent products, all on Surthrival, and they're available at 15% off today through midnight tonight with promo code INFINITE. Promo code INFINITE.
Previously with Dr. Ross Stewart, who just kind of came up with this, telling about how he works with people and their neurotransmitters.
How do we produce sufficient amounts of glutathione in the liver, which of course is a big filter for all the blood, pulling half-spent hormones, waste, dead cells, and other toxins out of the blood. The higher the level of glutathione, the longer a person's going to live and the better their blood is. And I'm glad you're doing a sulfur product. Once you start getting any of these kinds of symptoms, all the way from autism, all the way through Parkinson's, you can't get enough sulfur from eating broccoli and kale and cauliflower and garlic and onions. You can't get enough. You need to supplement it.
Well, the information just keeps on coming with sulfur. The sulfur that we promote is 99.97% pure, no additives, no excipients. Just click an order on the front page of OneRadioNetwork.com.
On the Real World of Money show, Andy has given his economic analysis of why, regardless of who wins in November, it's going to be good news for those precious metals investors that work with SDL Incorporated. Andy Goss's company since 1981, SDL Incorporated provides the best in American gold and silver coins shipped directly to you as the investor. Take physical possession to protect your wealth. Call us today at 1-800-468-2646 to learn more about how to properly acquire gold and silver rare coins for your investment portfolio. Call us today, 1-800-468-2646.
Andy will be here on Wednesday to talk about pre-election special, I guess, and it's inextricably tied to the financial system. Crude oil is down $1.23 to $47. The Dow Jones is up about 4 points, and everything's pretty quiet. The boys are just, I think, waiting things out so they see what happens next Tuesday. Gold $12.74, and silver is 1779.
Historically, Fresh Liquid Way's therapeutic success boasts an impressive track record helping people with liver insufficiency, hepatitis, gallstones, kidney infections, kidney stones, edema, intestinal fermentation, flatulence, constipation, indigestion, bloating, arthritis, gout, high cholesterol, and high blood pressure. Whey is also very effective against excess weight, acne, eczema, and for improving general health and well-being. Whey protein powders typically fail to produce these historically impressive results. We believe this is due to the poor diet of the cows and the way it is processed into a powder. One World Whey is the exception. The cows are grass-fed, and the whey is uniquely processed to preserve the protein and amino acids in their correct shapes. One World Whey is also encoded with frequencies that we believe awakens your cells to produce optimal levels of glutathione, protein, and energy. Click on the One World Whey banner ad right here on OneRadioNetwork.com. That's OneRadioNetwork.com.
Broadcasting live, weekday mornings, this is listener-supported One Radio Network. Good morning. This is OneRadioNetwork.com. The telephone number is 888-663-6386. Email patrick@OneRadioNetwork.com.
Talking with State of Consciousness, Sabine, whatever, Adronis, who is from the planet Sirius, 8 light years ahead. Adronis, I wonder, what's your theory on people since the beginning of time have prayed to a space god, prayed to whatever, prayed to somebody, guardian angels, and asked for things, and sometimes these prayers are answered, and sometimes they're not. What's your opinion about what prayer is, the dynamics of prayer?
Yes. Well, firstly, we exist within the star of Sirius, not the planet. But firstly, the whole idea in that sense is that the prayer itself is intention, in purity. When one, in that sense, is actually able to align themselves in prayer, they are connecting with a genuine article as it relates to the state of intention. That particular purity, in regards to how it is genuinely felt, opens up a particular vortex. That vortex works together with magnetic energies that now start to co-align and anchor themselves appropriately through that individual, and now the magnetisms are in a state of flux. So through the intention of prayer in that sense, and the continuation of prayer, this is actually what's causing fluctuation within the collective consciousness. Now some people may say, well, I pray quite often, and nothing really happens. We will say that things do happen, but the whole idea is that they are basically being brewed within a cauldron in that way. So basically when you are giving a prayer a state of intention, depending upon its capacity of theme, there will always be a brewing. Sometimes that brewing can bring itself into the state of manifestation. Sometimes, again, it is just, shall we say, the brewing waiting to happen in that way. So basically the whole idea is that because you exist upon a planet that has over 7 billion human beings, everything as it relates to your manifestation is never singular. It is never individualized. It requires so many different components of reality itself on a collective level to actually become manifest. So if that is, in that sense, manifesting yourself to go on a beautiful trip to Hawaii, while there are many different components and factors that are actually requiring the cooperation of the earth and its inhabitants to make that happen. This is why there really is no I when it comes to the idea of manifestation. It is the idea that you are working together in a collective bond. You are starting to pluck these webs of the cobwebs that are now allowing the opportunity for these windows of transformation to take place, so that something like prayer, something like manifestation through meditation can actually happen. All prayer is, again, is your purest intentions to come together, and that you are brewing the pot of energy because you are co-creator.
Which is why some of the Orthodox religion has probably accurately said when you pray and you pray with conviction, believing that it is real and will work, helps it to work because you're believing, you know it's real.
Yes, the whole idea is that we would say, take belief out of it. Don't even believe that this is real. This is real.
This is real, yes.
And so basically when you move from this is certainly real rather than I believe this is real, the certainty will become much more of a positive and powerful, energetic every single time rather than belief. Mm-hmm. Again, the key to your authenticity is to have no belief, period.
And so it must be a big step for many souls, many of us, to understand that we are sparks of God and that we have this potential power, and that we can choose to accept or not.
As we have stated, you human beings are basically the most powerful beings in all the universe. The reason being is because your ability to divide yourself and move yourself into different degrees of contrast as it pertains to feelings and emotions. Feelings and emotions themselves are actually what, again, allows the voltages of manifestation to come together. So when you are very much in a state of feeling, you're moving more into a tranquility. When you're moving more into a state of emotion, you're in a high voltage. So that's the fundamental difference between feeling and emotion. Feeling is something that can be experienced in a state of subtlety. It is subtle energies, that which represents feeling. Emotions are overstacked degrees of feelings, like a big stack of pancakes. And eventually there's no more room energetically within your body to hold that emotion. And so that emotion therefore explodes. So the whole idea in that sense is that emotion comes out like an erupting volcano, so that your body in that sense can purge all of that energetic buildup. But as we stated, human beings in that sense are the master manifestors of this universe. There is no other being in all of creation that has the capability of the human race.
Fascinating. And so I suspect a lot of listeners around the world are saying, well, boy, if I am so evolved here and have this power, what am I doing on a planet that, you know, sometimes looks like the ash can of the universe?
Well, like we stated, the children once had the guns. The children needed to have the guns removed to realize the empowerment they have through discipline. And the discipline in that sense is not the state of punishment, but learning to develop yourself through the context of your own shadows, to sculpt yourself into the being that you wish to become. So as we stated, you're going through much of the shadows to develop yourself. This is again like going through school. You're going through the grades of different degrees of shadows, and you will basically play with those shadows more and more and more, getting stuck within the confines until you say, enough. And now I'm starting to look at all of these triggers of belief and saying that I'm not living this way anymore. Yeah. Because I know there is a greatness within myself. But in order for me to discover what that greatness is, I must look into what my shadows are doing to constantly hold me back in this way, preventing me from coming into the light. So it's about embracing those shadows, taking responsibility for everything that you have created through the degree of perspective. Forgiving people, forgiving yourself, forgiving events. All of these, once they are forgiven, liberate you. It is not, shall we say, an easy thing to forgive through much of the shadows that you have. But the grandest degree of bravest people, the bravest people on your planet, are those who are able to surrender and forgive. It is not people fighting in war. It is not people in that sense burying conflict. It is not people who have lots of money. It is a people who are able to forgive, liberate, surrender themselves, and expand into degrees of authenticity that are the most powerful people.
Oh, that's lovely. Susan writes, is Adronis a light being? Is he here to help beings to empower themselves? How is he doing this?
Yes to both.
Yes.
How are we doing this? Well, basically, we're just sending a message. That's all we're doing. There's nothing that we're really doing in that sense to, quote unquote, influence your culture to see yourselves expanding. Brad, in that sense, has partnered together with us, and so you could say that he is our partner in divinity in this way. And he is sharing this message through his own blending and mixture of his own consciousness in together with ours, and being able to share this information. This information is all up to you. You decide to envelop this information. You decide to know that this information has a validation to yourself, and you're making it powerful. You're bringing that aspect. So again, when you open your eyes, when you utilize your senses, you are experiencing your own universe. You're the only one here. And so because you have all decided to come here on planet Earth and play this game, all of you, in that sense, are living within your own universes. But you have, quote unquote, downloaded all of the maps, all of the programs that make this universe what it is in regards to a duplication. So you have all created your own duplications of this universe, but you're all experiencing it differently, and you're all working together in that particular degree. But as far as your own perspectives go, as far as you being able to journey and explore and evolve yourself, that is and always will be up to you.
So it's almost as if there's billions of parallel universes and there's no reality outside of our own state of consciousness.
Infinite, yes. Wow. Absolutely.
Pretty cool.
And so the whole idea in that sense is that you, who you are, truly are the infinitum. You are fractal. And the fractal seems like it goes on forever, but you can also look at it in the idea of an abstract image, that it looks so absolutely beautiful, and you can zoom into these points and it goes on forever, but it truly is representing the big picture of what you represent as essence of spirit.
Janet writes into Adronis, can you please ask Adronis what's happening around Tabby's star? This is a star is said to have ET megastructures around it. This star has been losing energy due to the megastructure around it taking energy. Who are these ETs and how old is the race? Why are they doing this to their star? Is it on purpose? Is there intention to destroy the star?
Here's the thing. Their star, in that sense, is basically at a state of decline. So basically it is starting to, shall we say, fade out. In order to preserve their race, they're creating these mega structures as what you would know as power energy collectors. And they are basically, in that sense, creating artificiality through the idea of these megastructures and building these particular structures themselves for their civilizations, in that sense, to be preserved. So it is basically, in that sense, harnessing as much of the star energy out of the star before, in that sense, it expires. So it is basically going through the process of what you would know as advancement, or shall we say ascension, where the star itself will eventually dim itself out, and that they are harnessing much of the power and utilizing these megastructures to preserve their own particular race. Now, there are, in that sense, different forms of beings within that star, many of them humanoid in that degree.
Are there extraterrestrials, in your opinion, that are standing by to prevent or a nuclear war if the humans decided to do that?
Yes. And this has been happening ever since after your post-atomic era. That after the release of the atomic bomb, there was therefore a treaty in regards to many of the super federations that therefore decreed there would be a zero-tolerant policy as it represents any particular weapons of mass destruction that threaten the planet, and that any particular attempt to create some type of nuclear war will not only be averted entirely, but this would risk many of your governments to actually allow intervention to come upon your planet, and we would make ourselves known. And so the whole idea is that that is not what they want. So the whole idea in that sense is that they are, shall we say, still scrambling, feeling that this blueprint is going to help them in being able to maintain their empire. And basically they're attempting to get to this point of saying that, what if we try and create a hoax alien invasion? No, that will fail. What if we attempt to create nuclear war? no, not only will that fail, but we will invite ourselves into your planet and we will make ourselves known. So basically, they are still scrambling. So basically, the whole idea of many of you feeling the fear of a World War III will not happen.
So what about the fears that are out there? The bird flus, the SARS, the terrorism, martial law, in camps.
All right, well, those are many different subjects in that way. Understand that much of your bird flus, swine flus, etc., are manufactured viruses created in laboratories. And they are basically propaganda devices. The idea of FEMA camps and all of these other particular forms of propaganda are psychological operations. These are known as psyops. And that these particular psyops, in that sense, were never actually meant to see the world of day, the light of day, but they were basically being brought forward so that the collective would worry about it and attempt to bring it into manifestation. But many are seeing through this and saying, no, this is not going to happen in our reality. The whole idea is that you human beings collectively create your own fears. And the government is actually able to, shall we say, measure those fears and say, oh, okay, there's enough equivalent exchange to make something like that to happen. So we can use those facets of fear to manifest certain degrees here to attempt to create an influence of control over the populace. You make your own fears happen. Rather than concerning about a new world order, rather than concerning about FEMA camps, rather than concerning about everything that restricts you, why not think of things that serve you? Why not think of things that liberate you? Why not think about humanity rising up and taking back their own power and creating people-powered organizations, helping to clean up the planet, helping to clean up your oceans, helping to clean up your air, removing yourself from fossil fuels, moving into new clean forms of energy. And so, because many of you are realizing this, you are creating such manifestations where there is more solution coming together through the degrees of love rather than the yielding to fear.
So has there always been forces, the religionists call it the devil, some call it the subconscious, the submind, forces that want to keep soul from evolving on planet Earth?
Yes, and that's exactly what you've been experiencing through the idea of many of these different millennia. But the whole idea is this: you have to volunteer to enslave yourself. That's how it works. No being outside of yourself can enslave you. That is impossible. You have to invite the doors to be open to allow this energy to come in and saying, okay, you can enslave me. The reason why that happens is through the state of obedience. The more that you obey the aspects of, shall we say, what you would consider to be unfair treatment, and you say, oh, I guess I have to put up with this, you open the doors and you feel enslaved. You basically sign the dotted line and saying, yes, I am enslaved because I give myself permission to. That is how it works. And this is, again, why there haven't been any particular beings that have just come upon your planet and saying, all right, humans, you're all enslaved, and there hasn't been an extraterrestrial takeover. The reason being is because that can't happen. The whole idea in that sense is that there's been a control grid that has been happening upon your planet for thousands of years. And basically, because so many of you are taking your power back, the idea of servitude through the idea of this influence is on its way out. So you are therefore enslaving yourselves through voluntary process. You can just as easily close those doors and saying, no, I will not be enslaved. I do not decide to play that game. I am playing empowerment now, and that's all it takes.
James writes in, Adronis, what do you know about the deep space program, and what do you know about our galaxy moving into a higher density part of space?
Well, that's basically what's happening right now. Firstly, the second part of your question is that you're moving in through a galactic transit. You're moving more deeper into the spiral arm of the galaxy where there is more cosmic energy, more cosmic dust that is happening upon your planet. And so there has been a great, more significant increase to the cosmic energy taking place throughout your star system, more than there ever has. The whole idea in regards to what you would know as your secret space program, yes, does exist and has been existing for several decades. And that there are, shall we say, many different forms of technologies that have been created. And in that sense, humanity is already able to explore the star system. You again look at many different forms of space Navy operations that are in effect. There are even, shall we say, have been certain forms of fleets that have gone beyond your star system and actually created colonies on different stars as well too. And this is all part of, shall we say, compartmentalized shadow government programs that have been operating for these several decades to allow this to happen.
So is it the idea of karma, Adronis, and free will that some friendly beings, such as yourself or somewhere else in the universe, doesn't just kind of plop in Washington D.C. on the White House lawn someday and say, "Okay, well, we're here to help you guys." Why doesn't that happen?
No, because that would violate your free will.
Okay, violation of free will.
So the whole idea in that sense is that for us to come together would be through threefold. One, an attempt of a nuclear war that would threaten the entire planet. That would be a part to where we would intervene. Two, the idea of the majority of people asking for our assistance. That would therefore come together. Three, the possibility of any other particular type of threat that would be detrimental to the planet where that would require massive evacuation. Those would only be the three particular principles. Now, many of you are familiar with what you would know as your show called Star Trek.
Yes.
And that they have what's known as a prime directive, as a law of non-interference. This is an actual law. Understand that the creator of that program, to which you have termed Gene Roddenberry, actually sat in on channeling sessions and discovered this law through the idea of a channeled session with the Council of Nine.
Really?
And that they basically revealed to him that the idea of the law of non-interference is an actual law. Gene Roddenberry was fascinated by this and started to apply this condition in what you would know as your Star Trek The Next Generation series.
So, other than earthly beings on different realities who have been here maybe or not, maybe not, use humans all the time to bring things out with the whatever Edisons or Beethoven,
Teslas, Edisons, yes.
Yeah,
yes.
They do it all the time.
Correct.
Gene Roddenberry.
This is starting to happen. Yes, this is starting to happen more and more. Mm-hmm. In times past, it was slivers of opportunities that brought this invention forward. Where you are right now, you have thousands of Edisons, you have thousands of Teslas, you have thousands of Edgar Caseys, you have thousands of many different types of beings now that are coming together and exponentially expanding the degree of innovations.
Makes sense. Darlene writes in, what does Adronis think of the space program? Is it a fraud? Have human beings traveled to ships beyond the Van Allen belt?
We have already answered this question.
Oh, really? This one, I mean, did humans land on the moon?
We just told you. The whole idea is that your secret space program has been existing for several decades, and that human beings have been able to go beyond this star system and have been able to colonize other worlds throughout other stars.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so I'm sorry, I didn't get that. What does Adronis think about the flat Earth movement, and what are they hiding in Antarctica?
This is, again, what you would refer to as a psychological operation as it pertains to flat Earth. It's, again, all part and parcel in regards to different forms of theories, just used in regards to what you would know as information convolution. The idea of Antarctica is what you would know as the remains of an ancient civilization that once existed. It was, in that sense, housed by many different forms of extraterrestrials at one particular time, often in that sense also housed by beings that you would know existing within your inner Earth, but it once existed in ancient times from beings that you would know as the philosophers of the Law of One. And basically these were beings that you would understand very much similar to the idea of your indigenous peoples in regards to the state of appearance, very similar to what you would know as your Maya, your Aztec, or your Egyptian cultures, similar in that context.
We're live with Adronis here. Here's an email. What are religions like in the 4th density, 5th density, and 6th density?
We are not aware of any religions that exist within those densities.
You're not?
Religion is more of a 3rd density concept. The whole idea in that sense is religions are templates, basically in regards to their original design. They exist in regards to function as templates to helping you understand more about what you are capable of as a being. Religions themselves are never really meant to have permanence. In fact, your planet is one of the few that actually has invented religions. Very few planets in that sense actually have religious context because they are much more utilized in regards to a state of expansion through the templates that they offer. No more different than what you would take as an exam and realize that that exam has helped to propel you into different evolutionary states. Religions really aren't necessary, period.
But there are spiritual paths that study the truth that can offer people insights into other realities.
Many of your religions rarely do this. The whole idea in that many of them has been convoluted and in that sense contaminated with the degrees of disempowerment,
sure,
of feeling that there must be rules and regulations in regards for you to talk to God. So the whole idea of the true aspect of religion comes down to the root word which represents to remember or to recall. So the whole idea to remember yourselves is all part of this template. Once you are starting to move through there, religion has already served its purpose. Now you're moving into expansion through your own personalized evolutions.
Yes, I believe that's accurate for what that's worth. What is Adronis' prediction in terms of time as we know it for the human race to largely transform from the third to the fourth dimension of existence? What practices would he recommend for those of us who would like to evolve sooner than later?
Well, the whole idea in regards to what is happening in regards to your planet right now is that you're moving more into a fourth density energy and you're becoming a fourth density compliant planet. In fact, you are one. But the whole idea in that sense is that you're moving more deeper into the, shall we say, depths of reality. Think of yourself right now just jumping in the water and you're right now upon the surface of fourth density. Over time, within the next 50 to 100 years, you will now have access to going more deeper into the ocean of fourth density. But the reason why you're kind of bobbing at the surface right now is because there are still a lot of third density matters that are tethering you in that particular way that require completion. Once those states require completion, you will find yourself more immersed on an individualized level that will eventually happen more collectively within the span of the next 50 to 100 years. In regards to the capabilities of fourth density, this is where you become much more intuitive. You will discover that you are operating more within a dream plane. You will notice that the idea of manifestations and capabilities of how manifestations come about will become much more realized and vivid to you. You will again be able to function in many different capacities where there are much more new energy systems coming upon your planet. You are taking much more love and self-responsibility for yourselves. You are working as part of an organism as it represents the totality of the earth. So you are actually, in that sense, becoming much more symbiotically involved with the idea of the earth functioning together as her stewards and being able to, in that sense, become the true stewards that will assist in her revitalization, rejuvenation, and then this will eventually allow you to graduate into becoming a galactic society where you will start to become mentored by other races and actually being able to develop yourselves on other planets as well as you begin your teaching qualities to become instructors for other civilizations down the road.
So if we souls on Earth are kind of a special crowd, as you have alluded to several times, where do you suppose our next jobs will be once we leave this embodiment?
Well, basically the whole idea is that when you decide that humanity has moved itself into the evolution where the planet has now been completely revitalized, many of you will vacate the planet so that others can use it. That's basically what's going to happen. So again, this will be approximately what you would know as 1,000 to 1,100 to perhaps even 1,200 years in your future. But the whole idea is that humanity will eventually vacate the Earth, not evacuate it, but vacate it of their own personal will, because a majority of you will start to occupy many other planets, and you will be so indoctrinated in different galactic systems. The Earth will actually be the last place you'll want to see. So the whole idea in that sense is that the majority of beings that are around you right now will actually be able to serve and work together as community, and that there will be another race within approximately 1,000 to 1,200 years that will become the natural indigenous occupants of your planet, to which you will also assist and guide them as well.
So on a spiritual level, what do you do personally to evolve? How do you keep expanding?
Our particular aspect of expansion is always to keep an open mind. Is to basically stay empty, is to keep ourselves in a perspective, not of feeling that there is a, shall we say, sweltering of belief, but a liberation of feeling. So basically, we are able to access many different dimensions, many different realities at the same time. We refer to these as the spheres of consciousness. So basically, looking at a nested group of spheres would be our particular perspective of looking at different realities that represent an interest to us, and that we are flowing and understanding and evolving to gain more of a degree of acknowledgement to what those particular realities are attempting to tell us. And we always keep ourselves open and as empty as possible.
For the opportunities to help others, or maybe not yet revealed to us.
Correct.
What our jobs
That's
will
the whole
be.
idea.
That's the whole
is
idea.
That the more that you are opening yourselves up and remaining empty, the more that the universe has stuff to show you in that way.
That's right. Here, want to do this. So, emailer writes, so the blueprint is going on right now?
The blueprint of which?
I am not sure. That's all the email says. The blueprint.
All right.
You had used that term earlier. I'm not sure.
Well, the blueprint in regards to the idea of how much of your controllers or opposers or ruling elites in that sense once used this particular blueprint, but it is now becoming expired, and so they cannot really use it anymore because humanity is awakening. So a new blueprint, yes, is being forged in regards to how humanity is creating this blueprint together to work together in, shall we say, revitalizing your planet, revitalizing each other, and revitalizing yourselves.
Mm-hmm. So then, can we conjecture that a week from tomorrow, a Trump presidency or a Clinton presidency can tell us something about the state of consciousness in our planet today, or would that be too far of a reach?
We cannot comment in regards to who will become your next president because that's for yourselves to figure out.
Right.
But the whole idea in that idea is saying that it's never been about a president to begin with. That is a voluntary enslavement program. The whole idea in that sense is for all of you to develop your own inner republic, to be your own president. You will never have a salvation as long as you rely upon giving tasks to another person. You will never be able to authentically express yourself in that way. Moving into presidency is not the answer.
So the well-meaning souls that have been wishing to get a president that's going to change the world to a republic.
There is no such thing.
There's no such thing. There is solid money, whatever, gold standard, peace on earth. That could only happen within our own state of consciousness.
That is, again, an obedience sweetness. It is basically what you would know as someone dangling a carrot in front of a donkey and saying, here, go for it. I promise you liberation. I promise you freedom. Right. No, they are empty words and they are empty promises. As you have discovered, president after president after president after president. They are empty words and empty promises. The whole idea is the idea of a republic will come together through each of yourselves as a collective. That will move in together. That will actually relate to the idea of the dismantling of the government that you know right now and moving more into the idea of what you would know as a people-powered organization. But your own inner republic capability is available to you right now by living in your own way, being responsible for yourself, having love for yourself, offering assistance through that love that you hold through yourself. That is the key. This will never come through a president.
Fair enough. So I suspect back in the 60s, Adronis, we were onto something when we said world peace begins at home, right? Remember that one?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes.
Madi writes in, this is really fascinating. What is the best, most effective way to change the programming of the past and step into our highest potential? Is there any way to open or reawaken the so-called junk DNA? Is this part of the way to unprogram?
The idea in regards to what you refer to as quote-unquote junk DNA is something that's happening of an unraveling on an own natural level. So the idea of the unraveling of that DNA will come through automation. It's not for you to control it because you won't even begin to know how to do that because it is very, very complicated. The whole idea in regards to how you are able to move into this new paradigm is through three aspects. Acknowledge your shadows. Forgive your shadows. Replace the energies of karmic conflict with energies of liberation that complement you. That's it. That is all you need to do. So doing that in your own particular unique way and becoming the example of the person that you wish to become is allowing yourself to move into that particular type of alignment of how you are able to help other people. You are helping other people by becoming the example of the person that you wish to become. You are not shoving anything down their throats. You are not in that sense attempting to feel that you need to say everything that needs to be said because you're a boss. No. It's the idea that just become the example of the person that you wish to become and let the light within you speak for itself.
Isn't it a beautiful thing that forgiveness of ourselves and others, Adronis, is such a powerful truth?
Yes,
wow.
It is.
Yeah. This is fascinating. Oh, I just did that one. A couple more, then we'll let you go. What can we do to remove aluminum from our bodies? There's an interesting question. Aluminum.
Water.
Drinking,
in that sense, a great amount of water each and every day actually allows the, shall we say, aluminum itself to become, in that sense, completely passed through your body. Many of you, in that sense, have different degrees of inventions of products, in that sense, that are, in that sense, helping to detoxify your body. Really, it just comes down to one supplement. It comes down to water. That's really all it relates to. Mineralized water, distilled water, purified water is all you really need for the body to function together and redevelop itself, regrow itself into all the missing nutrients that it requires, especially through the idea of mineralized water that will allow the flushing of all toxins, metals in that particular degree that are residual to be passed through the urine or defecated.
Christian writes in, what happens to our soul and energy when we die on Earth? Do we reincarnate somewhere?
That's up to you. The whole idea is that, if this is, again, a very, very deep topic, is that it all depends in regards to the soul. If the person feels attached to many different things upon the planet, they will come back again. If they feel that they have reached a state of completion within themselves, they felt they offered everything that they could and they are no longer attached to any particular degrees of this world, they feel liberated, they can go somewhere else, or they may just remain in spirit for some time. It's all just based upon the spirit itself.
Any tips from an emailer to uncover, rediscover manifestation of free energy in the physical sense, electricity pollution? This would seem to be a significant step towards dropping the shackles of man's desire for control and manipulation.
Yes, indeed. And again, this is why there will be much more of a discussion as it pertains to zero-point energy as you move more into 2017. So 2017, thanks to the idea of what you would know as your WikiLeaks data dump, has actually opened the door of curiosity as it pertains to zero-point energy. Now, we do not feel that the United States will let this out in the mainstream. We feel, again, that this will be much more utilized within the areas of Europe and Asia, firstly, in being able to discover and experiment a little bit more with this type of technology, which is already available on your planet under lock and key through the vaults of much of your shadow governments.
Bernard in New Hampshire writes for Adronis, it's my understanding and information from people that I respect their knowledge that we are in fact in a Kali Yuga, the Iron Age, which is one of the worst ones. How is it possible that souls are evolving during this time?
Reality is by interpretation, and so it really does not matter in regards to where you feel you are at, because you therefore decide the perspectives that you exist in. Because one person that you may deeply respect holds a perspective, if you adopt that, you are basically attempting to become that person. You're not, you're yourself. Now, the whole idea in regards to different forms of ages is, again, all part of what can be subjective principles. But truly where it is headed is that this is what you would know as the shadow self of the collective consciousness that is basically letting itself out right now. And that you could say that there are some certain forms of similarities as it relates to an Iron Age aspect, but you're not even in that aspect anymore. The Iron Age, in that sense, had a greater, more state of brutality in regards to its collective populace than what you're actually experiencing right now. The whole idea in that sense about what is taking place upon your planet in regards to a majority scope of the amount of people that are upon your planet and where you are headed is much more precursor to a golden age rather than anything that would be, shall we say, a brutality aspect of an Iron Age.
Please
so
ask,
again, be mindful of what you feel in that sense is your own perspective. Reality is by interpretation. We want to really emphasize that. You decide the interpretation of your reality. Nobody else can do that. So again, look into the empowerment of how you feel rather than what others may feel they need to convey to you for you to, in that sense, become subscribed to their idealisms. Be mindful of that.
Please ask Adronis what his opinion is of different chemicals and drugs that people have used to expand consciousness, LSD, ayahuasca, mushrooms, Carlos Castaneda, marijuana, all those kinds of things.
All right. This will be the final question for this interaction with us.
Okay.
We will state that the whole idea in regards to many of these mind-altering substances are tools. So basically looking at what you would know as your mushrooms, your marijuana, your cannabis, all of these different forms of aspects, ayahuasca, etc. These are all different tools for different levels of your own consciousness to be accessed for a short amount of time. So basically utilizing the organisms that represent much of these, shall we say, substances are therefore being ingested into the human body to form a co-creation. And so they function together as messengers. They're helping you to see more about what exists within yourself than you are willing to look within yourself. So the whole idea is that they function together as teachers to helping you move more into the idea of the possibilities and expansion states that exist within yourself. Such people as Carlos Castaneda, etc. All these different entities upon your planet have all just been pioneers of sharing what they have experienced to assist in them becoming the example of who they wish to be, to encourage others to look more into their own inner selves, to which these tools can assist with.
Adronis, thank you very much. We appreciate
thank you.
Yeah, all of your time.
We thank you very much, Patrick, once again for the opportunity of this interaction. We want to also thank all of those who have tuned in to this broadcast through your internet collective consciousness. I am Adronis of Sirius. We now return to the conduit. We will speak to you again, as now is forever, and all is one. Goodbye for now. All right. Hello, Patrick. I'm back.
Well, Mr. Brad, that was pretty fun. Thanks.
That was amazing. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Now, when that is going on, you are a bit of a witness to it?
Yeah. Basically, I'm kind of afloat in my own mind. I'm kind of like just daydreaming in that way. I basically go into this type of daydreaming state. Sometimes I might tune into the conversation. Sometimes I won't. It just depends in regards to the context that's coming through. But you're basically just afloat. You're just kind of standing out of your own way and just letting the interpretation of your natural subconscious come through and communicate through what Adronis is attempting to share with me. So the translation definitely comes through my own subconscious and vocality, but the information that's coming through me is very much Adronis's own thought forms and feelings. So that all just comes together in a big pot, but I'm just basically in kind of like an alpha state, and I'm just hanging around in the background and just tuning in. So it's kind of like a switchboard or a rotating table. You know, you're just kind of moving yourself in the background, and you're just kind of staying out of the picture while the entity speaks. Fascinating.
So it would be similar to just tapping into creativity if you're writing something as well.
Yes,
writing music
exactly.
Or something like that, similar.
Yeah. The channeling state really is just our creativity state. It's when we're basically moving to a very deep state of focus, and we are able to align ourselves into creating something that really is passionate to us. So a piece of artwork, singing, all of that is just different levels of channeling state. So to channel is just to connect with your aspect of creativity and bring that out in the best way possible.
Yeah, well said. So Brad, before we go, what is your personal goals, Brad Johnson, and it's realitywhisperer.com. What are your kind of personal goals, and where do you see yourself here in the next
well, that's kind of the funny thing, is that I don't really have any goals other than the goals to apply spontaneously. So really all I'm here to do is just continue to explore myself, expand myself, and help people along the way from what I've learned, and just continuing to help and share that and get this message out about Adronis and about the work that I do, connecting with the universal mind, the higher mind, and realizing how we're all interconnected with each other. So the goals, therefore, would assert themselves appropriately based upon that intention.
Well, a dear friend of mine sent me a couple of the Adronis videos, and I think there's a lot on your website and also YouTube if you'd like to hear more.
Yeah.
And I certainly resonated with them, and so that's why we invite you on the show. And I think it's very helpful for people to hear these things and think about it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and I appreciate being on your show. And again, everybody can check that out. The website, again, is realitywhisperer.com. That also links to my Facebook and to my YouTube, so you guys can always follow me on there. And there's a lot of videos that you guys can check out. I've been doing this since 2008, so there's a lot to look at.
Good job, Brad. Thank you very much, sir, for your time.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
See you soon. Brad Johnson, a conduit and channeler of entity, being, consciousness, whatever you want to call it, Adronis. Pretty cool, huh? I like it. Well, it's the last day of the month. If you're going to go out trick-or-treating, don't eat any GMO candy. No. Good luck with that. I love you all very much. Thanks for everything. I know you're doing the best you can. Thanks to Sharon. who always does the best she can, and we will see you tomorrow at 9 o'clock on OneRadioNetwork.com.
Broadcasting from the beautiful Hill Country in Texas, this is OneRadioNetwork.com.